My daddy who kicked me out of the family vacation, even though I sent them $3,000 a month, so I cut the cash. And what happened next left them desperate. My daddy who kicked me out of the family vacation even though I sent them $3,000 a month, so I cut the cash, and what happened next left them desperate. I'm 32, male, and have been married to Sarah, 29, female, for 6 years. We've been together for 9, having met in college when I was finishing my engineering degree. I'm not some perfect guy. I work too much, sometimes forget important dates, and I've been known to leave my socks everywhere. But I've always been loyal, supportive, and honestly thought we had a pretty damn good thing going. I grew up in a small town in the Midwest. My parents are still married after 35 years, and I had a traditional upbringing. I worked hard to get a good job, bought a house in the suburbs, the whole American dream package. Sarah was studying psychology when we met. She's smart as hell, ambitious, and, honestly, way out of my league looks-wise. She had long brown hair, green eyes that would change color depending on what she wore, and a laugh that could light up a room. We hit it off immediately at a campus volunteering event where we were both helping build houses for Habitat for Humanity. I asked her out for coffee afterward, and the rest is history. Back then our connection was insane, both emotionally and physically. We'd stay up all night just talking, or, not talking. We got married 3 years later in a small ceremony with just close friends and family. We bought our house a year after that. Everything was going according to plan. I was climbing the ladder at my engineering firm, and she was building her own practice as a therapist specializing in family counseling. The irony of that isn't lost on me now. Our routine was comfortable. Weekday mornings, we'd have coffee together before work. Weekends, we'd tackle home projects or binge Netflix shows. We had date nights every other Friday. We talked about having kids eventually, but were enjoying our time as just us. The physical side was always good, not like honeymoon phase crazy, but regular and satisfying, or so I thought. So, there I was on a random Tuesday night, sprawled on our couch, scrolling through my phone, half watching some garbage sitcom rerun while I waited for my game to update. Sarah walked in with that look, the one that's part determination, part I've been practicing this conversation in my head for days. I muted the TV and sat up. "We need to talk," she said, arms crossed. Those 4 words are never followed by "I bought you PlayStation 5 games" or "let's order pizza." "What's up?" I asked, trying to remember if I'd forgotten an anniversary or something. She stood there for a second, like she was psyching herself up, then just dropped it. "I think we should try a sexless marriage." I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because I was 100% sure she was joking. "What, is this some kind of divorce prelude?" I said with an awkward chuckle. Her face didn't change. If anything, it hardened. "I'm completely serious, Mark. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I believe it could make our relationship stronger. Sex isn't everything, and I feel like it's holding us back from connecting on a deeper level." My brain basically short-circuited. Who was this standing in my living room? This wasn't the woman who used to send me dirty texts during work meetings. This wasn't the Sarah who once surprised me wearing nothing but whipped cream on my birthday. My stomach felt like I'd swallowed a brick as I tried to process what was happening. Wait, I stammered. "Where is this coming from? Are you unhappy? Did I do something wrong?" She sighed dramatically. Like my questions were so predictable, they bored her. "No, it's not about that. I've been reading a lot, listening to podcasts, watching these incredible women online who talk about reclaiming their identities, about how intimacy can sometimes be a crutch for deeper issues in a relationship." "Podcasts? Influencers?" I said. "So, what? You listen to a couple of episodes of some random show and decide our marriage is broken?" I wasn't trying to sound defensive, but come on, that's not what I'm saying. She shot back. "I'm saying we could try something new, something that challenges us to grow." "No sex," I repeated. More to myself than to her. In what universe does that strengthen a marriage? Her tone turned defensive. "You're being narrow-minded. It's not about never having sex again. It's about taking it off the table for a while and focusing on us as individuals. As partners." "Partners?" I said. "What kind of partnership doesn't include intimacy?" It was like she was speaking a foreign language and I couldn't find a translator. "You can't just spring this on me like it's some harmless experiment. We're not a couple of college kids trying out a weird new diet. This is our marriage we're talking about." She sat down across from me. Her posture calm but her eyes blazing. "Exactly. It's our marriage. And I'm saying we need to think about what's truly important. This isn't about rejecting you or punishing you. It's about figuring out who we are without relying on physical connection as a crutch." Crutch. That word hit me harder than it should have. I didn't see our intimacy as a crutch. I saw it as love, as connection, as the glue that held us together when life got messy. Without it, what were we? Roommates splitting the bills and occasionally sharing meals? Do you even hear yourself? I couldn't hold it in any longer, because from where I'm sitting, this sounds insane. Her face fell, but she quickly masked it with a veneer of righteousness. You're not even willing to consider it, she said softly, almost like she pitied me. No, I'm not, I fired back, because what you're asking for isn't a marriage. At least not one I signed up for. We sat there in silence, the tension so thick you could have sliced it with a knife. She looked at me like she was waiting for some grand epiphany to strike. Like I'd suddenly see the brilliance of her plan and fall at her feet in gratitude. But all I could feel was confusion, frustration, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about sex. This was about something bigger. Something that had been brewing beneath the surface of our relationship for who knows how long, and I had no idea how to fix it. The days following that conversation were surreal. I kept waiting for things to go back to normal. For her to sit down, laugh it off, and admit the whole thing was just a bad idea she'd gotten from some overhyped influencer. But that didn't happen. Instead, it felt like I was living with a stranger. At first it was subtle. She started spending every waking minute on her phone, always with earbuds in, always intensely focused on whatever she was watching or reading. I'd catch snippets of motivational speeches or self-help mantras if I walked past her. The value of a woman doesn't lie in her ability to please a man, I heard one day as I came into the kitchen. She quickly paused it, like a teenager hiding something from their parents. Interesting stuff? I asked, trying to sound casual. She just shrugged. Just some things I've been thinking about. That shrug, man. Sarah used to talk my ear off about everything. Her day, something she read, random thoughts at 3 in the morning. Now she was giving me one-word answers and shrugs like a teenager. Then her appearance changed. Sarah always had a casual style. Jeans, hoodies, t-shirts. Suddenly she was dressing like she had corporate board meetings every day. Blazers, slacks, button-up shirts. Even her hair changed. She chopped off her long brown hair that I loved into some kind of severe bob with bangs. When I first saw it, I literally did a double take. 6 years of marriage, and she never once mentioned wanting short hair. You look different, I said one morning as she put on lipstick on a Saturday when we had no plans. Thanks, she replied without looking at me. Are you going somewhere? I asked. No, she said, and that was it. End of conversation. Our home routine changed too. She stopped cooking with me, something we used to enjoy doing together on weekends. She stopped suggesting movies for our Friday night watch parties. She even rearranged her side of the closet, getting rid of all the comfy clothes she used to wear around the house. Every day she seemed more distant. The woman who used to curl up next to me on the couch was now sitting ramrod straight in a separate chair, engrossed in her phone. If I tried to talk to her about work, friends, or literally anything, she'd give me short, disinterested responses. What really got to me were the buzzwords she started dropping into conversations. Suddenly, everything was about emotional labor, male entitlement, setting boundaries, and feminine energy, terms I'd never heard her use in all our years together. I'm focusing on finding myself, she said one evening when I tried to bring up what was happening between us. Finding yourself? What does that even mean? You're right here, I said, unable to hide my frustration. You wouldn't understand, she replied, her voice flat. That line cut deeper than it should have. Was I suddenly too dense to grasp what was going on in my own marriage? We used to be able to talk about anything. Now I was being dismissed like some clueless idiot. I tried to maintain some normalcy. I kept inviting her to watch shows with me, to go for walks, to visit our favorite restaurants. She'd either decline outright or agree, but then spend the entire time distracted by her phone. Sex was completely off the table, of course. If I even touched her casually, a hand on her shoulder or a kiss on the cheek, she'd stiffen or subtly move away. The Sarah I knew, the woman I fell in love with, seemed to be vanishing by the day. And in her place was this cold, detached stranger who seemed annoyed by my very existence. About 2 weeks after the initial sexless marriage bomb, Sarah marched into the living room while I was watching basketball. Without saying anything, she sat down and thrust her phone in my face. Look at this, she demanded, pointing to an Instagram post. It was from some account called Patriarchy Smashers, with about 200,000 followers. The profile was full of quotes about female liberation and breaking the chains of male expectations. The post she showed me was a long rant about how sexual relationships with men were tools of oppression, and how women could reclaim their power by rejecting the male gaze and physical demands. What do you think? She asked, staring at me like I was about to be tested. I took a moment to actually read the post. It was basically claiming that any woman in a traditional relationship was being subjugated, that sexual intimacy with men was inherently oppressive, and that true liberation came from disconnecting from male validation. The comments were full of women praising these insights and sharing how they were setting boundaries with the men in their lives. What do I think? I think this is absolute nonsense, I said honestly. This person doesn't know us or our relationship. How could some random Instagram feminist know what's best for our marriage? Her eyes narrowed. It's not about her specifically, she said with a condescending tone I'd never heard from her before. It's about the concept. Don't you think there's truth in how society conditions women to believe their worth is tied to sexual desirability? Sure, in theory, but that's not our relationship. I've never treated you like that. You're seriously going to let some #activist influence our marriage? She sighed dramatically. This is exactly what I expected. You're completely closed off to new perspectives that challenge your male privilege. Male privilege? In the 9 years we'd been together, Sarah had never once used phrases like that. Now suddenly, I'm the patriarchy? New perspectives or brainwashing? Because this doesn't sound like you at all, I said, trying to stay calm. She stood up abruptly. You wouldn't understand. Your entire life experience is filtered through male entitlement. Then she walked out, leaving me sitting there wondering what had happened to my wife. That night, I lay in bed next to the stranger, staring at the ceiling, trying to pinpoint when everything changed. She was right there, inches away, but somehow miles apart. The woman I'd built a life with, planned a future with, seemed to have been replaced by some radicalized version I didn't recognize. The next day, I came home from work to find her organizing some kind of women's circle in our living room. 5 women I'd never met were sitting in a circle on our floor, burning sage, which I'm allergic to, by the way, and taking turns talking about dismantling internalized misogyny or something. Sarah barely acknowledged me as I walked in. We'll be done in a couple of hours, she said dismissively, like I was some delivery guy interrupting their important ceremony. I grabbed my laptop and retreated to our bedroom, listening to these strangers in my living room talk about how men were basically the source of all evil in the world. One of them was going on about how she'd freed herself from the male gaze by cutting off her husband's physical access to her body. The others murmured their approval and validation. Was this what Sarah was planning? Complete physical estrangement? I felt sick to my stomach. This wasn't a rough patch or a communication issue. This was my wife being systematically turned against our relationship by some radical ideology. After tossing and turning all night, a disturbing thought crept into my mind. What if there's someone else? I hated myself for thinking it, but it made a weird kind of sense. The sudden emotional distance, the appearance changes, the secretive behavior with her phone. People don't just wake up one day and decide to drastically change their marriage unless something else is going on. While she was in the shower the next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I tried to check her phone. It was locked, of course, and the passcode had been changed. We used to know each other's passcodes, not because we snooped, but because we had nothing to hide. When did that change? Later that day, I started paying closer attention to her behavior. She was constantly glued to her phone, angling the screen away when I walked by. She disappeared into our home office for hours, claiming she was journaling or participating in women's empowerment workshops. Every notification made her jump to check her phone. If I walked into a room while she was on it, she'd quickly switch apps or turn the screen off. Classic guilty, right? One night, I pretended to be asleep when she got into bed. She immediately reached for her phone and started typing away, occasionally smiling at whatever response she was getting. Who was she texting at midnight and why did it make her smile when nothing I'd done in weeks had earned more than a cold stare? Who are you always texting? I asked the next evening as she furiously typed on her phone. She looked up, startled, then composed herself. Just some women from my feminist collective. We're discussing the systemic oppression inherent in traditional marriage dynamics. Your feminist collective? Since when are you in a collective? Why does it matter to you? She snapped. Are you trying to control who I talk to now? That's textbook patriarchal behavior. It matters because you're my wife and you've been acting like I'm your enemy for weeks now. Do these strangers know more about our marriage than I do? I said. Maybe they understand me better than you do, she said coldly, then got up and left the room. That comment felt like a slap in the face. 9 years together and suddenly some online collective understood her better than me. I started noticing other changes too. She'd put her phone face down whenever I was nearby. She'd take calls in another room, speaking in hushed tones. She changed all her passwords, email, social media, even our shared Amazon account. One afternoon, I came home early from work and heard her laughing in her office, a genuine joyful laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in weeks. When I knocked and opened the door, she quickly ended her video call and switched to a blank document on her screen. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, I said, watching her face carefully. It's fine. Just wrapping up, she replied, not meeting my eyes. Who were you talking to? Sounded like you were having fun. Just the collective. We were discussing dismantling beauty standards. Yeah, dismantling beauty standards. Real hilarious topic. The paranoia began eating away at me. Every little thing felt like evidence. The phone glued to her hand, the locked screens, the vague answers, the late-night texting, the secret calls, the appearance changes. My mind was creating worst-case scenarios on a loop. Was she emotionally cheating? Physically cheating? Being manipulated by some kind of cult? I couldn't concentrate at work. I was losing sleep. I kept replaying our history, trying to figure out if I'd missed warning signs. Had she been unhappy for a long time? Was there someone specific who'd caught her attention? Or was this truly just some bizarre ideological conversion? One night, she fell asleep early, and her laptop was still open on the kitchen table. I knew it was wrong, but I was desperate to understand what was happening. I expected to find her browser history cleared, but instead, I hit the jackpot. She'd forgotten to log out of her email. Most of it was newsletters from these feminist accounts and updates from various empowerment forums, but then I saw a folder labeled Personal with dozens of emails from someone named Alex. I clicked on one from 2 weeks ago. Sarah, our conversation last night was incredible. I've never connected with anyone on such a deep level. You're truly awakening to your authentic power, and it's beautiful to witness. The way you described your situation at home, it's so common. Men simply cannot understand the emotional labor women perform daily in heteronormative relationships. You deserve so much more than what you've settled for. I can't wait for our call tomorrow, Alex. Another more recent one. I'm so proud of you for setting boundaries. That's a huge step. Remember, you don't owe him physical intimacy. Your body is yours alone. These feelings of guilt are just your conditioning. Break free from that. I'm here for you whenever you need to talk. Same time tonight? Alex? Who was Alex? Was it a man? A woman? It wasn't clear from the emails, but whoever it was, they were clearly encouraging Sarah to blow up our marriage. I kept reading and found an email from 3 days ago. Sarah, the more you tell me about him, the more I see the classic signs of emotional manipulation. He's trying to make you feel guilty for your personal growth. That's not love. It's control. You deserve space to explore who you are outside of his expectations. I'm here to support you every step of the way, Alex. I was livid. This person had never met me, knew nothing about our relationship, and was painting me as some kind of abusive monster. And Sarah was just accepting it, feeding this stranger details about our private life. I scrolled through more emails and found a meditation group Sarah had apparently joined, led by this Alex person. There were Zoom links for nightly sessions and references to private calls they'd been having. As I dug deeper, I found donation receipts. Sarah had sent money to this authentic feminine collective, $200 here, $350 there, adding up to over $3,000 from our joint account over the past month. We always consulted each other before making any purchase over $500, and here she was sending thousands to some online group. I also found a PDF titled Liberation Guide that outlined a 12-step process for freeing yourself from patriarchal relationship structures. Step 1 was recognize your conditioning. Step 2 was establish physical boundaries, including suggestions for creating a sexless relationship. Step 6 was divest from male approval, with tips on changing your appearance to please yourself rather than men. It was like a cult handbook. Everything suddenly made sense. The personality change, the new vocabulary, the coldness, the appearance changes, the women's circles, the secrecy. Sarah was being manipulated by whatever this group was, and this Alex person was messing with her head. I snapped a few photos of the most damning emails with my phone, including the donation receipts, then carefully closed the laptop exactly as I'd found it. I needed time to process this and figure out my next move. I didn't confront her immediately. Part of me was still processing what I'd found, and part of me wanted to see how far this would go. Over the next few days, I noticed she was attending these meditation sessions every night, always with her door closed and locked. I did some research on this authentic feminine collective. Their website was full of vague empowerment language and testimonials from women who had transformed their lives through the program. The founder, Alexandra Reeves, Alex, presumably, described herself as a spiritual guide and feminist awakener who had liberated herself from patriarchal bondage after leaving her husband of 15 years. The site offered different membership tiers, from a basic $49 a month for access to group sessions up to a $499 a month transformation package that included private coaching. There was also a donate button for supporting the collective's mission. It had all the hallmarks of a sophisticated scam targeting vulnerable women. The breaking point came after dinner one night. I'd cooked, as I did most nights now, and she'd barely touched her food, too busy checking the time every few minutes. "I need to go," she said, standing up and leaving her plate. "I have an important session at 8. "Sure," I said, my tone flat. "You go lock yourself in the office with your new best friend Alex while I clean up again." She froze, then slowly turned to face me. "What did you just say?" I put down my fork and met her gaze. You heard me, Alex, your guru or whatever, who's been filling your head with all this nonsense about me being some kind of oppressive monster. Her face went white, then flushed red. You went through my emails. How dare you invade my privacy like that? Privacy? Since when do we have secrets in this marriage? You've been talking to some stranger about our personal life for weeks, letting them convince you I'm some kind of villain, and I'm the bad guy for finding out, I said. You had no right, she shouted, hands shaking. This is exactly why I need space from you. You're controlling and possessive. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Controlling? I've been watching my wife turn into a complete stranger, spouting phrases she never used before, treating me like an enemy, and apparently sharing every detail of our relationship with some random collective online, and I'm supposed to just sit back and be cool with it? Alex understands what I'm going through. The collective supports my journey of self-discovery without judgment. They see me as a complete person, not just as an object for male gratification, she said. Object? Are you kidding me? 9 years together, and you think that's how I see you? I've supported every ambition you've ever had. I encouraged you to get your master's degree, to start your own practice. When have I ever treated you like an object? You just don't get it, she said with infuriating condescension. Your male perspective blinds you to the subtle ways you exert control, and Alex's perspective is so much more enlightened, I guess. This person who's never met me, never seen us together, knows more about our relationship than I do? I said. Alex is helping me find my authentic self. Your authentic self was just fine before this cult got its hooks in you, I said. Her eyes narrowed dangerously. It's not a cult, it's a supportive community of like-minded individuals who understand the female experience. A supportive community that encourages you to blow up your marriage? That tells you your husband is manipulative and controlling based on absolutely nothing? That has you changing everything about yourself? Sounds like the textbook definition of a cult to me, I said. You're just threatened because I'm no longer centering my life around your needs and desires. Centering your life? When have I ever asked you to do that? You're the one who changed overnight. You're the one who decided our marriage should suddenly be sexless. You're the one spending every waking moment getting brainwashed by strangers online, I said. The argument escalated into the worst fight of our marriage. She called me toxic, controlling, emblematic of patriarchal entitlement. I called her brainwashed, selfish, and unrecognizable. Then I brought up the money. And by the way, I know about the $3,000 you've given them from our joint account. That stopped her cold. How did you? I saw the receipts in your email. You've been sending hundreds of dollars to these people without even mentioning it to me. How is that okay? We always talk about big purchases, but suddenly you're funneling thousands to some online guru without a word. It's an investment in my growth, she said. But she had the decency to look slightly embarrassed. It's a scam, Sarah. These people are taking advantage of you. They're isolating you from your support system. That's what cults do. They convince you that everyone who questions them is your enemy. They get you to change your appearance, your language, your relationships, and then they take your money. You don't understand what this means to me, she insisted, but I could see a flicker of doubt in her eyes for the first time. At one point, I finally asked the question that had been burning in my mind. Are you sleeping with Alex? She looked at me like I'd slapped her. How dare you? That just shows how little you think of me. That you immediately assume I'm cheating. What am I supposed to think? You suddenly want a sexless marriage. You're constantly hiding your phone. You're having private sessions with some guru who's telling you your husband is the enemy. Connect the dots for me, Sarah, I said. I would never cheat on you. The fact that you'd even suggest it just proves you don't know me at all. I don't know you anymore because you're not the same person. The Sarah I married wouldn't join some online cult and let them dictate our relationship, I said. She stormed off to the office, slamming the door behind her. I heard her lock it, and minutes later, the muffled sound of her talking to someone, presumably her precious Alex. I sat in our kitchen, surrounded by the ruins of the dinner I'd made, wondering how we'd gotten here. Something had to give. We couldn't keep living like this. After that blowout, we barely spoke for days. I tried to process everything, weighing my options. I could continue fighting for a marriage with someone who clearly didn't want the same thing anymore, or I could take control of my own life. I chose the latter. Without telling Sarah, I contacted a lawyer and learned everything I needed to know about protecting myself. Then I made an appointment with a financial advisor and began quietly separating our finances. I opened a new bank account, transferred my portion of our savings, and made sure my paycheck would go to the new account. I documented everything. The changes in her behavior, the emails from Alex, the money she'd sent to the collective. I even recorded a couple of our arguments where she was spouting cult-like language just in case. Next, I called my buddy Ryan, who owns a real estate company. Within a week, he found me a sweet apartment downtown. Modern, Great views, walking distance to shops and restaurants. I signed the lease immediately. All the while, Sarah continued with her sessions and barely acknowledged my existence. Fine by me. It gave me time to execute my plan. I made sure all my important documents were secure: birth certificate, passport, financial records. I contacted all our shared accounts, utilities, insurance, streaming services, and either removed my name or created new accounts for myself. On a Friday, when Sarah was at work, I packed up everything that mattered to me: clothes, personal items, gaming setup, heirlooms. I left all the furniture, most of which I had paid for, and anything we'd bought together. I wasn't interested in fighting over material things. The last thing I did was leave an envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside was a note that read, "Sarah, you wanted a sexless marriage. I'm giving you one better, a husbandless marriage. I've moved out and separated our finances. You can have the house for now. I've paid the mortgage through next month to give you time to figure things out. My lawyer will contact you about next steps. Enjoy your authentic self. Mark." I also left printouts of all the emails between her and Alex, donation receipts, and screenshots of the Liberation Guide steps, just so she knew exactly why I was leaving. Then I walked out, drove to my new apartment, and started my new life. My first weekend of freedom was surreal. I set up my new place, went grocery shopping without having to check if anyone wanted anything specific, and slept in as late as I wanted. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen much because Sarah had gradually isolated me from them with complaints about their toxic masculinity or whatever. I joined a local gym and signed up for pickup basketball on Sundays, something I'd always enjoyed but had given up because Sarah needed me home for her self-care Sundays. For 3 days, absolute silence. Then the tsunami hit. First came the texts: "Where are you? We need to talk. You can't just leave like this. Please call me." I didn't respond. Then the calls started, dozens of them, which I sent straight to voicemail. Her messages became increasingly desperate. "Mark, please, this is a mistake. I never meant for this to happen. We can work this out." Still, I maintained radio silence. She showed up at my office on day 4, but I'd already told the receptionist not to let her in. She sent emails, left voicemails, even contacted mutual friends trying to reach me. On day 5, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Thinking it might be my lawyer, I answered. "Hello, is this Mark?" a smooth, condescending voice asked. "Who's asking?" I replied. "This is Alex from the Authentic Feminine Collective. I think we should talk." I nearly laughed out loud. "There is absolutely nothing you and I need to discuss. I understand you're upset, but Sarah is devastated. She's had a realization about how important you are to her," Alex said. "Oh, has she? That's fascinating. Tell me, Alex, how much money has Sarah donated to your collective over the past month?" Silence. "That's what I thought. Listen carefully. Stay away from my wife, and stop filling her head with manipulative nonsense. If you contact me again, I'll be filing a harassment report. Are we clear?" I hung up before they could respond. 2 weeks passed. I settled into my new place, reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in ages, and started hitting the gym daily. I was sleeping better, eating better, and feeling more like myself than I had in months. My lawyer informed me that Sarah had been served with separation papers. She hadn't contested anything yet, which surprised me. I expected her to fight, to drag things out, to make demands. Then Sarah showed up at my office. She looked terrible. Eyes puffy, hair unwashed, wearing an old sweatshirt instead of her new empowered woman wardrobe. My receptionist told me she'd been waiting in the lobby for 3 hours, refusing to leave. Against my better judgment, I agreed to 5 minutes. "You look good," she said quietly as she sat across from me. "Thanks. What do you want, Sarah?" "I made a horrible mistake," she whispered, tears welling up. "I got caught up in something I didn't understand." "Alex, the group, they're not what I thought." "And what were they?" I asked. She looked down. "After you left, I did some research. They target women in stable relationships, make them doubt everything, isolate them from their partners, then ask for money. I've given them almost $5,000 from our joint account." I leaned back in my chair. "That's unfortunate. Mark, please, I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened to me. I was feeling bored, restless, and then I found these videos online that seemed to speak to me. Before I knew it, I was in so deep." Her voice broke. "So, what do you want from me now?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "I want to come home," she sobbed. "I miss you. I miss us. I've been seeing a real therapist, not some online guru, and she's helping me understand how I got manipulated. I'll pay back every cent I gave them. I'll delete all my accounts. I'll do whatever it takes." "And the sexless marriage idea?" I asked. She looked mortified. "That was never really what I wanted." They convinced me that physical intimacy was a form of submission to patriarchal expectations. Got it. It sounds so ridiculous saying it out loud. And the women's circles? The radical feminist rhetoric? The complete personality transplant? I pressed. I got swept up in it, she admitted. It's like they knew exactly what to say to make me feel special, enlightened, like I was part of something important. They isolated me bit by bit, made me doubt everything I knew. Classic cult tactics, but I couldn't see it until you left.